They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s here.
A deal that could rewrite the military balance of West Asia. We are talking about the Saudi request. Donald Trump's administration is studying this request. The Saudis requested to buy 48 F-35 jets.
The moment the statement left Donald Trump's lips, the air in Washington seemed to thicken. Few announcements from any president have sent a deeper shock through the U.S. defense establishment than the suggestion that the United States would approve the sale of F-35 fifth-generation fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. It was a line delivered casually, almost as if it carried no geopolitical weight. But the F-35 is not an ordinary aircraft. It is the crown jewel of American air power, the most advanced stealth platform ever exported, and a system that has been guarded for decades with layers of restrictions, laws, and unspoken red lines. And suddenly, a former U.S. president was signaling that one of the most sensitive strategic boundaries in American foreign policy might be erased. For veterans of the Pentagon, for lawmakers on the Hill, and for allies watching from thousands of miles away, the message reverberated instantly. Because if the United States truly opened the door to giving Saudi Arabia the same fifth-generation stealth capability that only a handful of nations possess, then the entire balance of military power in the Middle East and beyond would shift in ways that can't be reversed. The shock wasn't just about the weapons themselves, but about what it meant for decades of carefully calibrated regional strategy. A strategy built on the belief that advanced American weaponry must never disrupt Israel's qualitative military edge, must never fall into the wrong hands, and must never compromise the most sensitive defense technology the U.S. has ever produced. And yet Trump's stance cut directly into that long-standing doctrine. The controversy surrounding it didn't come out of nowhere. For years, Saudi Arabia has pushed quietly and aggressively to acquire the F-35. They watched as the United Arab Emirates nearly secured approval for the jets in 2020 after signing the Abraham Accords, only for the deal to stall over concerns involving Chinese technology and long-term security risks. And the Saudis, with a defense budget among the highest in the world, have made it clear they want the same aircraft that Israel flies. But every administration, Republican and Democrat, has maintained the same position. Not yet, and possibly never. Because once the F-35 enters a country, the United States has to trust not just the government, but the entire security architecture surrounding it. And Saudi Arabia's
push for new U.S. defense guarantees began after a major shock to its security. In 2019, coordinated drone and missile attacks struck the Abqaiq and Khurais oil facilities, briefly halving the country's oil production.
Despite being a major U.S. partner, has always carried risks that Washington could not ignore. When Trump voiced his willingness to approve the sale, it reopened all those concerns in a single moment. Inside the Pentagon, officials who have spent their careers protecting America's most sensitive weapon systems began raising alarm bells. The F-35 isn't just a plane. It is a flying repository of advanced sensors, electronic warfare systems, encryption technology, and classified architecture. Every part of it represents decades of research and billions of dollars in U.S. taxpayer investment. If even a small fraction of its technology were exposed, copied, or compromised, adversaries like China, Russia, or Iran could radically reshape their own military strategy. And critics immediately pointed out that Saudi Arabia's relationship with China has deepened dramatically, including cooperation on ballistic missile development and communication infrastructure. Those ties alone were enough for many defense officials to say that handing Riyadh fifth-generation stealth capability crosses a line that should never be crossed. But the most politically explosive element of Trump's statement wasn't tied to China. It was tied to Israel. The United States has always guaranteed that Israel maintains a qualitative military edge, an advantage in technology and capability so strong that it deters adversaries regardless of numbers. That principle is written into U.S. law, shaped by decades of bipartisan consensus and viewed by American policymakers as a cornerstone of Middle Eastern security. Israel's F-35 fleet is central to that edge. No Arab state has been allowed to match it. And for years, Israel has made clear that allowing any other country in the region to acquire the same aircraft could destabilize the delicate balance that prevents broader conflict. Within hours of Trump's stance becoming public, reaction from Israeli officials was swift. Analysts in Tel Aviv warned that the move could force Israel to demand new guarantees or seek even more advanced U.S. platforms. Others said it might push Israel to expand its own covert capabilities to ensure no regional power could challenge its air superiority. And in Washington, lawmakers who have always protected Israel's security posture began sharpening their criticism. Even among Republicans who strongly support U.S.-Saudi ties, the mood was wary. Because while the USSAUDI partnership is strategic, deep, and economically important, it has always operated within specific boundaries, especially regarding sensitive military systems. Congressional reaction reflected that tension immediately. Members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee raised concerns about long-standing export restrictions. National security hawks warned that even if Trump wanted the sale, Congress could block it under the Arms Export Control Act. Senior Democrats argued that Saudi Arabia's human rights record, its past actions in Yemen, and the killing of Jamal Khashoggi already made high-end arms sales politically radioactive. And Republicans who typically align with Trump found themselves split between loyalty to the former president and loyalty to Israel's security guarantees. What made this moment even more charged was the broader strategic environment. The Middle East is undergoing a transformation. Saudi Arabia is positioning itself as a global player, balancing relationships with China, Russia, and the United States. Iran is accelerating its military modernization. Turkey continues to expand its indigenous defense production. The UAE is pursuing advanced technology at a pace that has startled European capitals. And across the region, governments are recalibrating their alliances as power centers shift. Introducing F-35 jets into Saudi Arabia's arsenal would not just tilt that balance, it would redefine it entirely. The Pentagon's reaction echoed that reality. Defense officials publicly acknowledged that the export of F-35s requires the highest levels of scrutiny because the program is structured around network security. Every jet connects to global maintenance systems, intelligence networks, and restricted data channels. To introduce a new customer requires complex safeguards, oversight mechanisms, and long-term cooperation agreements. With Saudi Arabia, those systems would need to be built almost from scratch. And officials stress that once the United States approves an F-35 sale, it commits to decades of support, upgrades, and shared operational oversight. It is not a one-time transaction. It is a permanent strategic alignment. And that is why Trump's stance landed with such force. Because it signaled that he, unlike previous presidents, was willing to upend the long-standing doctrine that only the most trusted U.S. allies should possess this technology. It suggested a willingness to reshape alliances in a way that prioritizes transactional relationships over generational security strategy. And it forced policymakers, analysts, and military leaders to confront a deeply uncomfortable question. What happens when the United States begins treating fifth-generation stealth aircraft not as a sacred asset, but as a geopolitical bargaining chip? Critics inside the intelligence community voiced another fear: technology transfer. Saudi Arabia's push to develop domestic defense industries means that any advanced foreign system entering the country will be studied, examined, and integrated in ways that may not align with U.S. strategic interests. Intelligence officials pointed out that the more advanced the technology, the higher the risk of unauthorized access. And given the complexity of the F-35's internal systems, even a small breach could undermine the stealth capabilities that define its value. And yet, supporters of Trump's stance argue that Saudi Arabia is already one of America's largest defense partners, purchasing billions of dollars in U.S. weapons annually. They argue that the USSAUDI partnership is essential for balancing Iran, stabilizing global energy markets, and sustaining American influence in the region. They claim that if Washington refuses to supply advanced systems, Riyadh may turn more aggressively toward China or Russia for next-generation technology. For them, the F-35 sale is a strategic necessity, not a risk. But even that argument does not fully capture the implications. Because the F-35 is not comparable to any platform offered by Beijing or Moscow. It represents a level of integration, data fusion, and real-time situational awareness that is unmatched globally. Allowing Saudi Arabia to join the F-35 network would give Riyadh access to intelligence architecture that directly interfaces with US and NATO systems. And that, according to NATO allies, is an issue that cannot be taken lightly. Several European governments expressed concern that the move could weaken the exclusivity of the aircraft and complicate Allied operations. Some quietly questioned whether the United States was prepared to manage the long-term diplomatic fallout of opening the program to a region where alliances shift more rapidly than anywhere else in the world. The world is watching, Washington is tense, and the stakes have never been higher. What unfolds next will define America's role in global security, reshape alliances, and determine who controls the future of air power. The consequences are already in motion, and this story is far from over.